Well, it has been a very interesting 3 years since we first started doing this. And it really has run the gamut from total disaster to things getting better. Maybe let's take a look at where we are right now and right in this moment. And why don't we start with you, Amy? How strong has the meetings industry recovery been? And is there areas where it's been better than others?
The best term to use is steady. Steady increases, steady growth. Pretty much in all markets we're seeing comebacks. The hotels can probably elaborate a little bit more on maybe markets that they're seeing, individually.
Okay. Anybody want to weigh in on where your particular property is right now, just in terms of the recovery? Mike did.
We're very thankful that things have really improved starting third quarter of last year, so about June of last year. And I don't want to sound like the executive cheerleader for the company here. I mean, the preceding 2.5 years were remarkably difficult. But since June of last year, I mean, if we're not growing by a quarter or a third, we're pretty disappointed. So it's been fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, actually, I think I may have mentioned this last time I was here. We went into 2010, with like 85% of our, actually went into 11 with 85% of our business on the books, which is really unheard of. I mean, we're normally at the 70%. And we have continued to grow that number, and now we're way beyond what we forecasted for this year. And rate has increased, and we're seeing spend increase. We're seeing customers, that for a while have pulled back on all that ancillary spend. We're seeing them spend the money on golf and spa and dine-arounds. And the AIG effect has somewhat dissipated. They're not as concerned as long as they can show the ROI. And I think it's across every segment, whether it's association, whether it's corporate. Certainly incentives on an uptick for 13 just because of the rollout of the programs. Obviously certain sectors are affected, but the financial sectors come back, insurance, tech's doing well. So we're really pleased and are very hopeful that it will continue into 12.
I think one of the really interesting things, and if you guys are seeing this as well, let me know, but as I talk to customers, the commitment to face-to-face meetings has never been higher than it is now throughout my career. When we entered this downturn, 2.5, 3 years ago, I was really concerned that face-to-face meetings, this business was going to have a difficult time for a long period of time because there was a generation coming up that was not as big believers in the benefits of face-to-face meetings, and then people had stopped having face-to-face meetings. Customers right now are so committed to face-to-face meetings and the value it brings to the table. And they're not spending quite as much as they did 2.5, 3 years ago, but their volume's there, they're having meetings, they're not bringing as many people as they did 2.5, 3 years ago, but they're having them and they're committed to them, more than they've ever been in my career. So it's really interesting to see that.
And I would have to agree, where we experience huge attrition numbers for groups in the past 2 years, this year it's very minimal, and in some cases some groups have increased 10 to 20%. So to Mike's point, I do feel that the importance of the face-to-face meetings are coming back, and I really think that we're seeing that impact. And as Danielle mentioned, the RevPAR is actually increasing and going in the right direction for the first time in a while, so it's a good thing so far.
And has everybody experienced that too, even amongst the sectors that wound up taking TARP money, during the meltdown of 2008?
I think we're finding less concern regarding the AIG effect, as you mentioned earlier, and as Danielle mentioned. 2 years ago, when we really started this, we were in the throes of the media attention for what was happening there, and also from some comments that were made by our president regarding Las Vegas in particular. That was very, very damaging back then, and I think at this point, most of the planners that we're seeing are growing out of that. Really hasn't been an issue over the course of the last, certainly 18 months, and that is refreshing to see. And I think, even to Mike's point, what's happened in the meetings business really is that people contracted so heavily 2 years ago when the market went bad. They're now finding that having those face-to-face meetings are so important to what they do, because not having them was not producing the results that they needed in their organizations.
There's been some new things happening in 2011 that have been positive for the meetings industry. One is the debut of some new trade shows. AIBTM debuted in Baltimore earlier in the year, and next month we have IMEX America that's going to be coming to Las Vegas. And maybe what effect do you think that's going to have on the meetings industry? And what do you think? Why don't we start with you, Chandra?
With IMEX, I'm happy to say that the floor plan this year for 2011 for their kickoff is actually just as strong as what they've just seen in Frankfurt. So I think that's really positive to the amount of popularity and interest that having this meeting in Las Vegas is going to have. And I think the people who are going to be attending this meeting, I think that's going to help Las Vegas. I think it's also going to bring a lot of buzz to the meetings and events industry. And with the launch of the international terminal in 2012, I think that's just going to add that much more strength to the city. And having IMEX here really promoting that international business is going to go a long way.
I think another interesting component to this is that the trade show industry itself for the hospitality world has changed, and that we're seeing the navigation more towards appointment-based shows because we're able to then show a better ROI. And I mean, you see it with AIBTM, you see it with IMEX, and you see it with a series of other programs that actually are being designed by publications. And I think that's huge. And so I think we're very anxious to see the results of IMEX and what they can bring this year.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to chime in here and echo what they basically said on face-to-face, especially Michael. In attending previous shows as MPI, PCMA, they're pushing social media. And I think it's interesting that although they're pushing social media, the face-to-face by the clients, the customers, are still very, very important. And I think for us at the Riviera, our sales execs really need that face-to-face because the positioning of our hotel is different. We're coming out of a receivership, starting all over, if you will. And it's been a big challenge. And so the face-to-face meeting has been very, very important.
It's such an interesting dynamic because in a time period where social media, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter are becoming such a more common piece of our lives and existences on the meeting side in sales and in operations. At the same time that's happening, a first-time trade show that's never been held in the United States is going to be the largest trade show ever in our industry, right? So it's this balance between, it's this way to use both non-face-to-face and face-to-face communications to grow your business that I think the last 2.5 years have really caused people to think through in a way that they never had before.
Yeah.
And I think it's really good for all of us. I think it's good for our industry, it's good for our city, and it's good for all of our businesses too.
And Amy, just to talk about the city, what impact do you think IMEX will have on Las Vegas, and specifically in maybe turning it into an international destination or reinforcing it becoming an international destination?
Yeah, definitely reinforcing what our international. We're already known as an international business destination. Through our trade shows, CES, NAB, ConAg, ConExpo. This is just going to continue to support that. Also, the World Trade Center designation that just happened for us too. But I think it'll reinforce the corporate meeting planner, the international corporate meeting planner, coming in, seeing the destination. Our entire hotel community has just stepped up for IMEX. It's going to be a fabulous event. And touching base, going back on the hosted buyer concept. And even AIBTM, that's been a huge change for us. I mean, if you can get that guarantee on what you can bring back, we, as a destination, we will continue to attend any event or show as long as we have a return on investment from it for the community and for our hotels. And so, yeah, we're very, very excited about IMEX.
Okay. And now the downside or the difficult part of this question. What's going to happen to the motivation show? Is there a place for the motivation show? And is anybody here going? Or what does anybody think about the future of that show as a meetings and incentive show on the travel side anyway?
Can we bring it to Vegas?
Yeah.
Really? Well, that's what they should have done a long time ago.
As a destination, we are going. We will continue to, again, as long as there's return for us and there's business that becomes out of it. So we are still going. And we'll continue to do so.
I think the dynamics, though, will change. I mean, we saw it change after September 11th, and over the last 10 years, it's just downsize, downsize, downsize. And so I think it may end up being a regional show. It certainly is a show that's very easy for our incentive buyers to get to, because a lot of them are located in the Midwest. And we're going, and we'll be there supporting, you know, the LVCVA, but it's, I think the international attention, the national attention is really coming to Las Vegas and to IMAX. And, you know, another component to that is that you see MPI and PCMA and you see SITE all behind, you know, the IMAX event that's taking place in October, which I think has added a lot of credibility to it.
And supporting that, you do see in a lot of the different shows, depending upon where they're held, you do see a heavier regional attendance. So you know whenever you go to the different areas, you're going to see a different marketing mix.
Just to build on what Amy said, and this isn't meant to be, this is going to sound politically correct, it's not meant to be politically correct, but we'll all continue, I think, to support, to go to and attend trade shows or any events really that put us in front of customers that we want to get to know better. And I don't think that, I think that was the same way in 1995 and 2005, and it'll be the same way in 2015.
Okay.